Hey, welcome to podcast 73 of the Pickleball Crew. Crew, what are we going to talk about today?
All right, I'll start off first, Bud. We've been talking a lot, discussing with each other and also discussing in drills, and then trying to take it into our rec games and trying to remind each other about the importance of trying to go cross court. Um, and today we're gonna try to discuss a lot of the benefits of going cross court. Of course, there are some times where you don't want to go cross court. We're going to try to just delve into some of that too. But we're going to try to talk about it in three phases from the back line, basically returning from transition and from up at the non-volley zone line. So I'm going to kick it over to Ken. And Ken, if you will, get us started on value of going cross court from the back line with your returns.
Well, one thing is you've got more real estate going cross court versus going straight ahead. It's just a basic math equation there. Especially if part of it could be who you're trying to target and who do you want to keep back because they've got to let the ball bounce. Um, and so who do you want keep back? Who do you want returning, making that third shot? But a good cross court return gives you enough time and enough real estate that you're going to be a little more successful with your return of serve. It's going to help you get up to that no volley zone.
Yeah, I mean, in targeting, like you're saying, targeting a certain person is always a good reason for doing it too. If you have a weaker backhand back there on the line, that might be something that with return, you would absolutely want to go cross court to go to a weaker backhand.
But I will play devil's advocate on this. If I go cross court, that means my partner now has to guard the line at the no volley zone, which they're already there. That means that not only do I have to make it up to the no volley zone, but I have to squeeze down on the tee. So it actually is more real estate for me to cover in getting up to that no volley zone. Because we've got to kind of squeeze down, make sure that the obvious, easier shots are covered. And we're now, in some ways, forcing that server who's now making a third shot, if they want to do a cross court drop, that's we're kind of leaving that open for them. And then, of course, we'll react accordingly once we see what type of shot that server is hitting on a third shot.
A couple things there, though, Ken. For those out there that are really strong returners, sometimes their strong return um, gets them in trouble because the ball gets to the serving team so quick they have trouble getting up. But
Right.
if you'll go cross court with it, sometimes that allows for you to have more time. You're also going at a lot of times right-handed players, and you would squeeze down on the tee. If they try to drop or hit a shot across your face there, that's a low percentage of the court for them to go to. If they're trying to go hard there, if they can hit that shot, 6 out of 10 times, my goodness, that's just a tough one. But if they're dropping it, you have plenty of time to get over there and take that drop and then continue on from there.
I think one of the biggest advantages, though, if you can manage to do it in the direction you're talking about and pull them really wide, you're now pulling both parties wide and leaving yourself an opening. So if they do come back cross court, now you've got a lot of opening to down the line that you can shoot for too. So sometimes going cross real strong. If somebody's very consistent about it, this isn't something we're going to say do all the time. But like Ken is so strong with that cross court and even pulling you really, really wide. He's already setting up the whole shot with that, with forcing you to go out wide. And you're getting a lot more court opening, open for you to take that next shot once they send it back to you.
So it can be something to add to your game, but also there's value in going straight up the line. We talked about a little bit off camera. Ken and Vicki, in y'all's normal stack situation with Ken on the left, you on the right, if you return up the line, okay, that really allows Ken to get really big in the middle of the court, okay, and also protect you while you're trying to come up. So, there's value to going down the line. I think it's a matter of figuring out what your skill set is, what you're good at. Ken, I've seen your cross court return 1,000, 10,000 times, and it's really good. It's in your skill set to hit that. Tony Audemont hits that shot really well. Mm-hmm. So, might be something to just, figure out your skill set, figure out if you can do that effectively, and then do it. Because I don't care what you're doing there, cross court or at the line, it is ultra important to get yourself to the line as early and as often as you can. So that's some pretty good discussion on from the back line. Now let's talk a little bit about transition and trying to go cross court when you can. Does anybody have thoughts on that?
Well, I would say before we jump to that, as the serving team, if the return of serve comes cross court back to the server, in my opinion, it depends on where my opponents are. If my opponents are squeezing down on my side of the court, I'm going back cross court with a drop. If my opponents are more in the center of the court, I may be driving the ball straight ahead. So, now looking at the third shot, what do I do with it? Those are some things that may go through my head as far as whether I'm going back cross court or I'm driving the ball down the line. And if that returner who just hit a cross court return is not making it all the way up, I might even be driving the ball across court at that person if they're still moving or haven't quite made it up to no volley zone. So in my mind, I'm just trying to complete that 3-shot scenario as far as cross court or driving.
Yeah, depending on if you feel like you have an advantage or if that advantage has been neutralized or not.
Right.
Well, I think also you need to look at the habit of the people serving when you return a serve. If they're or when they're returning serve, if they're staying back, I think you want to hit at whoever's back. I know I play with people, and on a return of serve, one person stays back all the time. They never come to the net. So I would want to keep hitting it at them, whether it's cross court or straight on.
Yeah, I mean, that would definitely flip the script. They have the advantage, but if they don't take advantage of their natural advantage of being the returning team, then you can flip the script and gain the advantage within 3 shots of the point. So that's kind of rare, but it's definitely something to take advantage of.
Yeah, well, it's rare in higher level play for sure.
Yeah,
you're not going to see that much in higher level play. So that's a pretty good discussion from the back line. Now let's move to the transition area and talk about the significance or advantages of going cross court in the transition area. Anybody got any thoughts on that to start us off?
Well, for me, it's a tough shot. Coming up in the transition with the ball coming right at me to try and hit it back cross court, that's, to me, one of the harder shots, especially if it's to my backhand. So it's something that certainly deserves a lot of practice, for sure.
So, Bud, that starts us off good, and so let's talk about this. There's certain shots that you get hit where if you're trying to change the direction of that shot, and you want to go cross court, but you're trying to force something cross court that shouldn't be forced cross court, then you shouldn't do that. Sometimes they're catching you at your feet, and you're just trying to get a paddle on it to get it wherever the heck you can get it back across the net, either middle, straight ahead, or wherever. We're mainly talking about shots that you have a decision to make on. Okay? So it's a shot where you could either go straight ahead or you could go cross court. And that's mainly what we're talking about here. Take a lot of those shots cross court. And if you'll do that and let it become part of your game, because Vic, you see this as much as I do. How many times, and we do it sometimes too much, for sure. How many times you see people just getting balls back straight ahead of them, and there might be a 5-shot sequence, and there was 2 or 3 of those balls that they could have went cross court. You see that a lot.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and again, to go back to Ken's point originally from the baseline, is that you have a little more room too. Again, you're going across the middle of the net, which is lower. So sometimes that cross court gives you a little bit more comfort. And for a lot of people, that's their forehand. They like taking it with their forehand. But again, it just gives you a little bit more room to get that lift and that softer shot, so that you can drop it cross court. Again, if it's giving you some good air, you're giving yourself even a little bit more time to get all the way up to the no volley line.
Yeah, when you're in control and can decide where you want to place the ball, that's one thing. But when the ball's coming with a little bit of pace on it, or you're a little out of position, to try to change the direction of a shot, that is an unforced error waiting to happen. And I see it so much in rec play. There's a ball coming from one direction, it's got a little pace on it, and they're trying to take their paddle and completely redirect it as a wide V back across. And that's a really a hard shot to do. That's a shot that you almost want to just make contact, try to soften it up, get a reset in, and almost send it almost back in a similar direction from which it came. Because you're not in total control of that shot. That's not a shot that you have a lot of decision on. That's a shot that you're just trying to react and keep it unattackable, in my opinion.
Well, to me, and that's some really good points. The 2 main aspects of this, and Vicki touched on one of them a second ago. You have, if because of the geometry of the court, when you can get that ball cross court from transition, you have a lot more room for error there, because it's a longer line between you and the person that's diagonal to you. So if you can imagine trying to hit drops straight ahead, and we're talking about both people are up on the line, it's a harder drop with that person straight in front of you. Can you make that drop? Yes. But if you try that drop 100 times and try cross court 100 times, it's going to be a lot easier to make that cross court drop. The net is also lower in the middle, 2 inches. If you go straight ahead, depending on how far you are out on the sidelines, now you're trying to drop over the highest part of the net. But the next thing is equally as important, if not more important. When you go cross court and you put some air under the ball, you're trying to transfer you and your partner to the net on this shot. If you keep firing away flat, straight ahead, you don't have near as much time. So if you're doing that most of the time, it probably has a lot to do with your struggle of trying to get yourself and your partner to the net. So if you can get that shifted to where when you do get a ball that you can get cross court and you take it and go cross court with it, it's going to help you get to the net more often, which is going to translate into more points.
Yep.
No doubt. And think of it as a defensive position at that point, that, I'm just trying to reset it and send it in such a way so I can move forward, as opposed to taking a really hard shot.
Yep, and that's correct, Vicki. But also the whole time you're in that, you're chipping away kind of in that defensive mode. You're also hunting. You're hunting for a ball that they may pop up that you can counterattack, if they get it up a little bit. For sure. Because we've discussed this with everything that's going on in pickleball right now. You can be the reset king and you're going to lose pickleball games. You got to have that offense added in there to it. And to me, the only time that you would want to try to reset in front of you is if, like we were talking about earlier, something happens and that player in front of you ends up back off the line from a shot that he or she hit previously, and now you happen to have room, they might be 3-4 feet back off of that line, then you can go straight ahead there, but we're just talking about in general terms of incorporating the cross court game into
Mhm.
your game.
Right. And I mean, that thought, I'm glad you said that because that thought came into my head too as well, but it did come into my head going cross court. And another reinforcement is when that person who is there is, 2 feet off the line or something. Absolutely. That's a great place to go in front of them. And you can go a little deeper with your drop, and get it back at their feet. So they're giving you more room, like you say.
I suggest really working on this hard at rec play. Of
Mhm.
course, when you get in a tournament, if you determine one player or the other is weaker, then you might want to force more straight up, drops or resets at that player that you deem weaker. Um, but I just think in general, and we've said this a couple of times on the podcast, watch high level pickleball and sit there in your head and look at about 10 points and just count the number of shots that go straight ahead and count the number of shots that go cross court. I don't think you would be able to find a video out there that would show more straight up than cross court. Those players go cross court 60 to 70 something percent of the time, sometimes even more, just depending on the match.
Mhm.
And if
Yeah.
they're doing it,
Aggressive,
we should do it.
the more aggressive that they get, generally that is cross court. You're going to do more of your aggressive shots, I think, more cross court as well. When they start putting it on a little bit, and pressuring you and pressuring you and pressuring you with those dink and wanting to push you back, they're getting more. That's a lot of times that's cross court coming at you that way.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are both good at that.
You got to be careful though going aggressively cross court where you're really creating a ball that's going to carry outside of the post, because ATP has become so commonplace now that it's also almost become um, not the shot to hit. At rec level, it still is, but at higher play level, people are so good at defending an ATP that sending a ball out wide, you now have so much more court to cover, right? Because the player in front of that person you just sent out wide, they've got to cover the ATP. That pulls you in, and I've seen people defend the ATP by going completely cross court as a defense of it, and that court has opened up because the person hitting the ATPs and their partner has moved all the way in to try to cover some of the center of the court. So be careful going really hard with a cross court shot because you don't want to open up an ATP situation. Um, it can lead to some good things in rec play, but at the higher levels, it actually could be a detriment.
Yeah. So that's a really good point, Ken, and that leads us to the next phase that we're going to talk about is at the non-volley zone line. When you're up, all four players are up at the line. You want to go cross court, but you want to be careful of that hard angle cross court, like you're talking about, that goes out wide of the post. And it's kind of amazing how the game has you used to, if you saw an ATP at rec play, you just thought, man, that's the greatest thing I've ever saw. If you saw one of them at rec play, it was like, wow. Now you can go out to rec play and you can see numerous ATPs, and you're starting to see people, defend them. So that brings us to the dink game. So, what y'all's thoughts on, going cross court when you're in dink battles?
Well, again, going straight on, that net is higher versus going over the middle of it where it's lower. The other thing is giving yourself more real estate to be able to hit it. And in some ways, I think it opens up, what we've done the drill that was, showing the difference between covering 50% of your, the court, the no volley zone, versus 75% even. Move your markers over, and you begin to see movement now, and you've got more places that you can send the ball from the opposite side. And it's such a good little exercise to get people to practice their footwork, practice their patience, and also be able to be aware that now I'm covering that much more of this no volley zone. And it teaches you also to send it back even softer, because you just can't go hard when you're covering that much real estate. So it's a fun little exercise to do, but it's again, going cross, it just gives you much more room to send the ball. Even if you're practicing right foot, left foot, we do that a lot too. Just send the ball back and forth between the 2 feet. Um, you've got the room to do that, a little more room to do it.
I tell you what, when I'm dinking straight ahead, I feel like I have such a small, um, uh, room for error. It's just I really I'm just much more focused, and I'm really worried about getting that ball up. That ball's got to be coming down over the net. That the apex of my shot has to be on my side of the net. It's got to be coming down, and you start to flirt with hitting it into the net. When I'm dinking cross court, I feel like I have all the real estate in the world, and I'm just much more comfortable. Not to mention the net's 2 inches lower at the center, so I'm just always been so much more comfortable, even if I'm dinking a little into the center, but it's cross court, or if I'm dinking really a wide shot.
You and Vicky just both touched on it. The forgotten area cross court is cross court middle, at that inside leg. Um, Now you see higher level players will mix it up some, but a lot of new dinkers, new people coming in, that you tell them, try to go cross court. Well, they're steady just cross court, to that back corner of the kitchen area, which is a good spot to go. But when we say cross court, you also have cross court middle, where you're going at that person's inside foot. That is I don't know if everybody out there knows this, but that inside foot with a fairly aggressive dink can be a difficult spot for some people, even at higher levels. So don't forget about that. And Ken, like you said, it's pickleball is a percentage thing. If you're dinking straight ahead most of the time, or even 50-50, you're going to make more errors with all four players up there at the net. The net's higher. It's a harder dink. Can it be made? Yes, of course it could be made. But if you go cross court 60 to 75% of the time and stay away from that straight ahead dink as often as possible, you're going to, your percentages are going to go up. You're going to keep more balls in play. You're going to stay in more dink battles. It's going to transfer into you winning more points, and ultimately it'll transfer you into winning more pickleball games, which is what we're all after.
Well, I think part of it too is you've got to look at the movement of the players. If you're dinking cross court, and the opponent that is cat a corner from you is more or less kind of camping out a little more wide because you're in 2, 3, 4 dinks in a row cross court, you got to watch the opponent that's across from you, because if they're not moving with the ball to make sure when the ball comes back to you that they're covering down the line, and then they're not moving in to close the gap. I mean, a couple of cross court dinks, and now you've got an open spot right down the middle for an easy dink, and you don't have to put a lot of pace on the ball. So you one thing with cross court dinking and then moving it to the middle and going back cross court, watch the movement of the players in front of you. And if they're not responding to where the ball's going, that's going to create some openings for you just to keep an eye out.
Yeah, and I can actually create an opening straight ahead as well. If you've got somebody who's moving, but moving too, just keeps moving further over each time, trying to, and this can happen a lot in mixed doubles because men want to become more of a part of the point and of the battle, and they want to interject themselves, which is what they're kind of supposed to be doing, right? Is taking over a good portion of the court. But if too much happens and that ball comes back to you nice and wide, you now have an opening to pass them up down the line. And so you're right, whether that opening comes down the middle or comes down the line, moving your opponent. And I've seen many, many times where people also set a trap for their opponent by continuing to hit the ball in the same spot, same spot, same spot. And then all of a sudden they change and the other person may not be ready for that change. And that can get you a good point too.
That's good stuff. The other part of this, and this is kind of playing devil's advocate here, the other side of the coin. Let's say I'm cross court dinking with a guy, okay, and he's either out dinking me, or the pattern that they're in is leading to, when I go cross court with him, it's leading to them winning a high percentage of points. Then I should take the ball. Once we figure that out, I should take the ball and put it in front of me. Okay? Now I'm making that player on that side make a decision. Do they want to come back to me, which is a lower percentage dink, or do they want to go cross court with the person that's beside me? And it might be a better situation for me and my teammate. So that would be one time where you would want to go straight up. And I would want to do that. I wouldn't want to try to force a ball there like we talked about a while ago, because that can be difficult. When I get a ball that I can comfortably put straight in front of me, then we could try looking at that cross-court battle with the two of them and see if that puts me and my partner in a better position to win points.
Absolutely. That's where the experimentation can make a difference.
Yeah.
That's how you can discover that somebody's got a weaker backhand, or if you put it a little deeper behind their left foot and get it back there, that they just don't have the dexterity or something to be able to scoop the ball and get it back over. Those are all things you learn as you're playing. So.
Yeah, and you got to be careful dinking straight ahead, right? If you're not paying attention, you're setting somebody up for possible Ernie on you. But the second thing, I like to dink straight ahead, going to one foot, going to the other foot, coming back. The second I see that my opponent's partner is cheating in to the tee, then I like to take one of those straight ahead dinks and I like to go cross court with it. And sometimes you just catch them flat footed and your dink goes cross court and they can't get to it. So
that's a good point, Ken. When you talked about the Ernie going straight ahead at the highest level, and in my opinion, even though he's split up with Colin Johns, Ben Johns, in my opinion, is still the best player in the world. If you watch his matches, you will almost never, ever, ever see him dinking straight ahead. When you pull him wide off the court, he's taking that ball and he's putting it back kind of into the middle or back cross court.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very seldom. Very seldom. If you don't believe me, watch him play. And if you can get 10 times on video where he went straight ahead, that's a lot, because I've watched him play a lot. And there's a reason he's doing that. Ben Johns is big. Not only is he very talented, but he's big on high percentage pickleball.
Mm-hmm.
So, can we do it like him? No, we can't even get close to that. But we can try to emulate, again, what they're doing and try to incorporate it into our games. That's some pretty good discussion there. Do y'all have anything else to add to that?
Just that when you are out drilling, if you are part of a drill group and you're out drilling, make sure that you're getting the work in cross court and that you feel comfortable, hitting from the baseline, hitting from the transition zone, and certainly hitting your dinks from the no volley line. Make sure you've got plenty of practice doing cross court as well. And we've set out markers, cones, that sort of thing, to have visual targets to help ourselves. Especially when you're trying to send it back from a high ball at the net, you want to go cross with it because there's an opening there. You want to be able to place it there and place it in the court and not just wail on it and send it out, because you hit it too hard and you're hitting on such a sharp angle. So definitely get out there and practice those cross court shots. I think it's important to incorporate that in your drills.
Yep. And then when we slide into rec play, if you got friends that are, on your side that are, willing to help you, help remind each other. I like having people remind me of things, because we all get caught up in the game. And sometimes it's just, if you can revert back to those fundamentals, it'll bring you to the finish line.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's a pretty good discussion there on going cross court. Get it incorporated in your games. If anybody has any comments or anything, about what we said you thought was right or what we said you thought was wrong, feel free to leave it in the comment section. Talk to us at the courts. There's all different ways to play pickleball. So we're going to kick it back to you, Bud.
Hey, Bud, I've got a shout out. All righty. I would just like to thank Ed Bodker and Phil Pierre for inviting Ken and I over to the Pontchatoula Community Center. They have a great little group there. We were invited to come and lead some drills with them, and we had a great time. Great group of people. They were very responsive to what we were showing them and going over. And Ken, I think you had mentioned that every Wednesday, Mr. Ed is doing different things with this community center, right?
Yeah, so this is at the Pontchatoula Recreation Center, which is on 5th Avenue and in kind of the downtown Ponchatoula area. And that's an old facility, but they've upgraded the lighting there. The court surface is pretty good. And they have ample room for 3 courts, using temporary nets. And it's a good group. I would contact Ed. They have an app, and I don't know which one it is, Pickle Play or one of the apps that they communicate that group on. But maybe we can get Ed Bodker's contact information and post it here. But it's a fun group, and I tell you what, they were really committed to their craft. They were all ears and listening to Vicki kind of lead them through the drills, and the play was really good there. We had a good time.
It was very, very nice, and he has so many great ideas of how to expand this group and how to almost even do traveling days where they go play other venues. And his Wednesdays are teaching days, and he brings in, I think, Jeff, haven't you been there?
I've been to the Pontchatoula Community Center many times. It's been there since I was a teenager, but I haven't been there to play pickleball yet.
Okay.
With those folks.
Yeah, so I know they're going to be looking to bring in, other coaches and actually have just some real targeted, information for everybody that's in their group. Very membership driven and community driven. So we just want to say thank you for having us. And it was a joy to be with them and go over some drills. How we love our drills. So back to you.
All right, Vicki, thanks for that shout out. Hot off the press, it's time for Ken's tournament previews.
Hey, thanks, Bud. Welcome to Tournament Preview. Here we go. Going to March 7th through 9th. This is the Graywood Spring Pickleball Tournament, Lake Charles, Louisiana. It's a Graywood Racket and Golf Club. Registration closes February 26th. We'll put the URL at the bottom of the screen, but basically go to pickleballtournaments.com to register. March 8th, 9th, the Shamrock Showdown at Pelican Park in Mandeville. Go to pelicanparkrecdesk.com to register. It's $30 per person per event. So if you just want to play gender doubles on Saturday or mixed doubles on Sunday, you can. Friday night, there's also going to be a social, some snacks, drinks, and open play starting around 5 p.m. More details on all of that to come. March 14th through 16th is the first annual Camellia Classic at John Slidell Park in Slidell, Louisiana. We don't have a URL yet. As soon as we get it, we'll pass that along. March 15th, 16th. Also, this is the 2025 Mississippi Senior Games. This will be at the Pickler. The last few years, it's been at Pops Ferry Park. They're going indoors with it. If you haven't been to the Pickler, this is more than enough reason to get into the Mississippi Senior Games and play at the Pickler. Registration is now open. We'll put the URLs at the bottom of the screen, and it's $25. And I think that gets you 2 events. I'm not positive. I know there's no singles this year because this isn't a qualifying year, but check it out. Go down to the URLs, register, and that's always a fun event to play in. And the Pickler is a great venue to, even if it's your first time Senior Games player. Also, March 15th, the Nichols Women's Soccer Pickleball Tournament. This will be at the Thibodeau Recreational Fitness Center. We're going to put a flyer on the screen. There's a QR code. Take your phone, scan the QR code, and it's going to be more details on how to register. March 21st through 23rd, the Pickle in the Dell. Go to pickleballbrackets.com to register. Registration closes March 18th. It's $65, and I think I get you more than one event. Also, March 22nd, 23rd, Battle at the Beach in Gulf Shores, Alabama. Go to pickleballtournaments.com to register. We'll put the URL at the bottom of the screen. Registration is open. If it's now after February 1st, it's going up to $70 to register. March 27th through 30th is the Alabama Open in Clay, Alabama. They use both permanent pickleball courts and some tennis courts that are striped for pickleball. That's a fun place to play. Clay, Alabama is just outside of Birmingham. And registration has opened, and it will close on March 13th. Moving to April 4th through 6th is the PPA Challenger Series at Stacks Pickleball in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Go to pickleballbrackets.com to register. Registration will close March 28th. It's $70. Also in April 11th through 13th is the Hattiesburg Pickleball Classic. This will be at the Willis Terry Tennis Complex in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Registration is open. It'll close on April 1st, thereabouts. Go to paddlessignup.com. We're going to put the long URL at the bottom of the screen. Look, this is going to be a fun one. There's going to be probably close to 350, 400 people registered for this one. Also on April 12th, 13th is the NOLA Amateur Open at the Exchange. Go to pickleballtournaments.com to register. We'll put the URL at the bottom of the screen. It's $75 to register. And finally, April 25th, this is the Pickle Jazz 2. It's the second year of that. It's going to be at the Breck Greenwood Tennis and Pickleball Complex in Baker, Louisiana. We have a URL at the bottom of the screen. The URL is going to have also a flyer. The flyer has a QR code. We're going to put a URL at the bottom of the screen as well to register. A lot of tournaments in March and April. Don't miss out, before it starts to get hot in the May-June timeframe, and there's fewer tournaments to play in. Anyway, that's it for tournament preview. Back to you, bud.
Thanks for the previews, Ken. And now, if nobody has anything else, I think it's time to say goodnight. Good night, y'all.
Good night.
Hey, from the Pickleball crew, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next week.
Well, that's it for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave any comments and please like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks again and see you next week.